International Law of the Sea. What is the International Law of the Sea? The law of the sea is a body of customs, treaties, and international agreements by which governments maintain order, productivity, and peaceful relations to the sea. NOAA's nautical charts provide the baseline that marks the inner limit of the territorial sea and the outer limit of internal waters. Hugo Grotius, the father of the law responsible for the concept of a freedom of the seas. According to Grotius, no part of the sea may be regarded as pertaining to the domain of any given nation. Western civilization became increasingly dependent upon the use of the sea for trade, transportation, and communication. A 3-mile territorial sea zone was claimed in the 17th century on France. A 12-mile fishing zone claimed by Imperial Russia in early 1990s. After the Law of the Sea Conference in 1978, most maritime nations adopted a 12-mile territorial sea zone. The United States predicated final acceptance for this 12-mile limit only if the law allowed for unplanned passage through, over, and under international straits overlapped by the 12-mile limit. Territorial sea, baseline, continental shelf, common heritage, the sovereign rights for exploring and exploiting land living of man area, resources of seabed and subsoil, plus sedentary species kind exclusive economics and self-defense zone, sovereign rights for exploring, exploiting high seas and managing and non-living resources of the water. The basic principle of the International Law of the Sea that had evolved over the centuries are high seas, territorial sea, and special contingent zones. The high seas is the concept of freedom of the high seas contains that no nation may restrict any areas or resources to its exclusive use or sovereignty. The high seas, all parts of the sea that are not included in the territorial sea or in the internal waters of the test. Territorial sea, the concept of the territorial sea contains the coastal states have near absolute sovereignty over a narrow band of waters adjacent to their coast. Spatial contiguous zones, the concept of spatial contiguous zones contains that spatial limit jurisdiction prevails such in the straits and channels, and where neither the rules of the high seas nor territorial seas pertain. United Nations Law of the Sea Conference have met a number of times since 1973. The stated purpose of the Law of the Sea Conference has been to develop rules for peaceful use of the seabed beyond the continental shelf to the entire spectrum of the ocean uses. The United Nations recognized wide disagreement between developed nations and undeveloped nations, underdeveloped states and industrial states. The basic issues at the conference were the breadth of territorial sea, passage through straits, fisheries, the seabed, marine pollution, and scientific research. Over the years, some conventions have been agreed upon, but no global agreement covering the many items on the agenda has yet been reached. For possible adverse impact of international legal rules on the Navy's mission include limited mobility, vulnerability to surveillance, vulnerability to interdiction, limitations of oceanographic and intelligence gathering activities. Limited mobility restriction on passage, increased reaction time to trouble areas. Vulnerability to surveillance, requiring warship to use designated sea lines, increased surveillance. Vulnerability to interdiction, if the narrow sea lanes were in a strait, mining of the area or attack by enemy naval and air force will be much simpler than if abroad a sea area. Legal development may impose limitation on oceanographic and intelligent activities within the 200-mile zones. The maximum size of territorial sea is 12 nautical miles. The innocent passage, the right of vessels of one nation to navigate peaceful through the territorial waters of another nation. The oil tanker passage through a territorial sea must be continuous and expeditious. Stopping on a core is allowed only to provide assistance to persons, ship or aircraft in danger or distress. A littoral state must not hide their innocent passage. A foreign ship in passage through territorial seas must comply with observed rules concerning the safety of traffic and protection of channel and buoys, pollution of the waters, conservation of the living resources of the sea, the rights of fishing and hunting.